Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, we are from group 9 and in this video we would like to explain about intonation. And then before we get started, let me introduce the team. My name is Rafa Zahra as the first presenter and my friend that is Rahmi Triastari as the second presenter. Enjoy the video. Okay, so what is intonation? Intonation is the music of a language and is perhaps the most crucial element of a correct accent. When we speak, our vocal cords vibrate, and the frequency of vibration decides the pitch of the voice. Sometimes the pitch rises and sometimes it falls or remains level. The way the pitch of the voice varies forms the intonation of a language. It has been defined by many experts, and some of them are: intonation is a distinguished characteristic of the spoken language, which includes a continuous pitch changing and a variation of speaker's voice to convey meaning. Bradford in 1988. Intonation is also often referred to in everyday language as speech melody or sentence melody, terms that focus on pitch variations and modulation. Chan in 2002. As the part of phonology, intonation is the kinds of pitch modulation found in whole utterances. Carr in 2008. So, what is the relation between intonation and stress? As people suppose that they are quite similar, that is the emphasis of sound. The interaction, intonation, and stress, the patterns relative prominence which characterize an utterance, particularly close in many languages, including English. The use of an inappropriate intonation patterns may give rise to misunderstandings. Understanding the English intonation system is essential for understanding surface stress patterns because the association of a pitch accent to a syllable gives it an absolute prominence over any syllable that has no associated tone. English is considered a stressed language while many other languages are considered syllabic. What does it mean? It means that in English we give stress to a certain words while other words are quickly spoken. In other languages such as French or Italian, its syllables receives equal importance. For example, they can come on Friday. They can't come on Friday. As you can hear, they can't come on Friday is longer than they can come on Friday because both the modal can't and the verb come are stressed. When we use the positive form of can, we quickly glide over the can and it is hardly pronounced. And how important is intonation? S.M. Chan in 2002 says that there are 4 functions of intonation. Those are grammatical functions, attitudinal functions, discourse functions, and sociolinguistic functions. The first one is grammatical function. Intonation helps identify grammatical structures in speech. We use intonation to mark the beginning and end of grammatical units such as clause and sentence. We do this by tonality. We also use intonation to distinguish clause types such as question versus statement and to disambiguate various grammatically ambiguous structures. For instance, old men and women. If we say the utterance old men and women without an intonational break, the adjective old modifies the whole utterance, with the consequence that both men and women are old. On the contrary, if the utterance purse is said with an intonational break after men, the adjective old will modify only the noun men, not women. And the second one is the attitudinal function. In linguistics, intonation is variation in spoken pitch when used not for distinguished words as seems, a concept known as tone, but rather for a range of other functions such as indicating the attitudes and emotions of the speakers. As Raj in 2009 states, a more comprehensive pitch range is mainly used to indicate excitement and enthusiasm, whereas a slower pitch is majorly used to indicate tiredness and boredom. And the next one is the discourse function. In 2002, Chan said that intonation highlights certain pieces of information and marks boundaries in the discourse, such as those between sentences, topics, and conversational turns. It relies with information structure that is the speaker's perspective based on perception about hearer and about hearer's sentence level knowledge. There are two emphases those are provide sentence level focus, emphasis given versus new information, and mark sentences boundaries. And to illustrate, consider the example from Keitamba in 1989. Do you like books? I like books. The non-books in A receives tonic stress because of carrying new information, but in the B's reply, books represent the given information, thus the verb like is instead highlighted because it brings the new information. And the last function of intonation by Chan's versions is the sociolinguistic function. Like other pronunciation features, intonation identifies people and social groups, whilst in 2006, Kapur-Kahlon in 1986 states that speakers of many social regional groups can be identified from their intonational patterns, and she adds that the intonational contrast identifies speakers themselves due to the claim that every single individual has his or her own intonational characteristics. And then the types of intonation. English uses rising and falling pitches differently and has its own distinctive melody and intonation patterns. Intonation describes how the voice rises and falls in speech. The three main patterns of intonation in English are falling intonation, rising intonation, and fall rise intonation. With rising intonation, you have to rise slightly the pitch at the end of the sentence, whereas the falling intonation, you go down a bit. Detailed explanation of those three categories of intonation is gonna be explained next.
Okay, next. Number one, vowel intonation. In normal neutral sentences, the last content word of the sentence is the one that receives the most stress. And so we're going to rise and then vowel verb that stress syllable down to the end of the sentence. Your pitch is going to rise to its highest point on the stress syllable and then drop down at the end. This drop at the end is why we often revert to this type of intonation as vowel intonation. Vowel intonation describes how the voice falls on the final stress syllable of a phrase or a group of words. A vowel intonation is very common in WH questions. Example, where's the nearest post office, or what time does the film finish, or where are you from? Whenever you have extra bonus words at the end of sentence, but they are the most important words of the sentence, that will give you a little more time to create that fall at the end of the sentence. We will also hear vowel intonation on tag questions. When you have fully intonation on tag questions, it signals that it is just a statement of fact. Example, the weather is beautiful today, isn't it? It is beautiful day, isn't it? Or this place is beautiful, isn't it? Or we are having great time, aren't we? And we also use vowel intonation when we say something divine or when we want to be very clear about something. Example, I think we are completely lost, or okay, here's a magazine you want. Number two, rising intonation. Rising intonation describes when our pitch rises from the stress syllable of the last content word of the sentence and continues to climb depending on the context, and the emotion or attitude you're trying to convey with your tone. Rising intonation may start earlier in the sentence. and then climb and then climb all the way to the end. This type or intonation signal that we need clarification or confirmation from the person we are interacting with. Rising intonation describes how the voice rises at the end of sentence. Rising intonation is common in yes or no question. I hear, example, I hear the health center is expanding, so as that the new doctor, or are you thirsty? We can also ask statements as questions simply by using raising intonation. When we turn a statement into questions with this type of intonation, it signals that we'd like to check or confirm our understanding with the other person. Example, you are from Boston, or you went to the gym. Number 3, fall rise intonation. Fall rise intonation describe how the voice falls and then rises. We use fall rise intonation at the end of statements. Fall rise tone function stand in contrast to the rising tone function, where the rising tone signifies a yes or no questions to which you expect an answer. The fall rise tone signifies a yes or no questions where an answer is not expected, merely requested. The fall rise intonation is used a lot in English and has some rather special function. It is some it is to describe limited agreement or responses with reservation. Number 1, the full rise tone can variously indicate A. Doubt or uncertainty, B. Politeness, especially in requests, a suggestion, and contradicting statements, C. Curiosity, interest, or engagement, mainly in questions, D. Intimacy or gentleness or friendliness. Number C, encouragement or motivation. Number F, a subclause which is about to be followed by a main clause. G, that a statement or question is leading to a concluding statement or question. H, that something hidden or secret or unknown has been revealed or discovered. Speakers sometimes use the full rise on open questions as well when they want to show more concern about outcome or the person they are speaking to. This relates to politeness and more specifically to curiosity, interest, and intimacy, friendliness. Beyond questions, the full rise in a common feature of statement as well. In statements, it usually shows that something else is about to be said, and I'll come back to the subject of two-part and three-part tone in isolation. The main function is to show that the speakers is hot certain of an answer they are giving to a questions. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.